Welcome to the Nurturing Fathers Podcast, a show dedicated to helping men succeed at the most challenging and rewarding job they'll ever have, being a dad. Your hosts are Mark Perlman, the creator and founder of the Nurturing Fathers program, and his son, Corey Perlman, who facilitates the program at the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary and is also a father of 2 young children. It's time to add tools to your Nurturing Fathers toolbox. Mark and Corey, take it away.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Nurturing Fathers podcast. My name is Corey Perlman, and excited once again to be joined by my father, Mr. Mark Perlman. What's up, Dad?
It's all good, Corey. Nice to be here with you in Tampa, Florida, and great to be back with our audience. Happy to be doing this podcast.
Yes. So you chose an interesting topic today that I think we all, in some ways, struggle with, and the word of the day is control. So talk to us about why you chose this as a topic and why we all seem to struggle with it so much.
Yeah, it's not a topic that we talk about often in parenting or fathering, and yet I think it's a real critical one, crucial one for all of us. You know, there are certain circumstances where we need to exercise out-and-out control with our kids. If there's a fire in the house, you grab your children, you run outside, if the child is running into the street and there are cars, you say, stop right now. And then you grab the child and you pull them to safety. And there's no dialoguing, there's no talking. That's something you have to act on. That is exercising pure control. But when we use that as a parental strategy, now we men tend to be much bigger, much stronger, much deeper voices, much more authority with our children. So the potential for that is there. So I think we do it for 2 general reasons. One is that as men, we may have a controlling type of personality. The male stereotype definition says, maybe control is good in some ways. You want to be on top of things and in competition, sort of always be a winner and come out on top. So the problem is if it becomes a personality trait and we want to control everything in our world, or especially our relationships, control our children, control our spouses, control the circumstances around us. That is a high stress endeavor because control is really a difficult, if ever possible, thing to accomplish. And for the people in our world, it means they are the ones controlled. And with that comes a lot of questions. What do they have to give up? Is that acceptable to them? Are they gathering resentment? So if we find ourselves with a controlling personality, which I think is not the dominant issue here, but then I would say go to our Power Over Power 2 podcast, and that brings up choices we can make in our life to moderate that control or possibly look at different options. What that leads into is we don't control for the worst of reasons. I mean, we want our kids to behave well. We want them to do the right thing. We want them to listen. And I agree with all that stuff. The problem with control is that it's 100%. Yeah. It's all or nothing. The power lies with us. So it's don't do this, don't do that, stop that. It's a shortcut. It's a shortcut for discipline. It's a shortcut for more patience. The key factor is how does it work? I don't think it works real well because, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So the more we control our children, the more likely they are to push back. You don't want to get into a power struggle with a 2 or 3-year-old. It is not a pleasant thing for you and for them. And you definitely don't want to get into a power struggle with teenagers.
Well, it reminds me of something that someone once said. I couldn't remember if it was you or somewhere else. But the joke is if you really boil it down to actually trying to make your kids do something, try to make your 3-year-old eat peas or, squash or whatever. But literally you can't force. When you really boil it down, they have to still choose to do it. You may try to demand it, but you can't force feed, a child. So
and if we do demand it and force it, what the outcome will be is the child will be asked to sacrifice their will, sacrifice their own personal power. And I think what we have to question is that what we want? So the end point isn't respect. The end point isn't good discipline. The end point is obedience. The best you'll hope for is obedience if you use control. So take a look at obedience and peel that back a little bit. That means the child has to give up their ability to choose. their free will. And do we want that in our child? To me, that sounds like it weakens that little boy or girl, and it leaves them vulnerable because they've learned to respect pure power wherever they find it. It might be an abusive person. It might be the drug dealer on the street. I think it's asking too much to ask our children to give up their own free will. So if control is 100% and takes away freedom, the alternative is not disrespect. The alternative is a process of helping the child gain power and respect through a process of discipline. And that's what the Nurturing Fathers program chooses. If control is 100%, we can influence our children 1 to 99%. So our strongest card is influence. If we play that card right, we will teach them right from wrong, our values, our morality, our spirituality, all that will be transferred, but not with control, with influence.
It's interesting. I have a friends of ours. This is just happening now. It's really interesting that we're talking about this, where they have started this experiment with their kids. So their kids are ages from 1 to 11, and they are not requiring them to do anything or telling them to do anything. So it's a couple month process, and they're trying to give the kids full responsibility to be able to control what they're doing. And it's supposed to help in a bunch of different ways. But the bottom line is, unless there's danger, like you talked about, they don't tell them what to do. So for example, when they wake up in the morning, they either eat breakfast or they go to the bus stop or they don't. And there's natural consequences to see. So there's this whole exercise that they're doing. And what has been fascinating to see, first of all, is that if we are in the pattern of telling our kids what to do day in and day out, when we stop doing it, they don't know what to do. Like they literally, their compass is so off and so, geared towards listening to us and having us tell them what to do. So at first it's just like, and it's a realization that we're leading their lives, which probably in some ways is not such a good thing. And then what they've seen over time, after a few natural consequences, missing the bus, being late for school, not eating dinner, whatever, they start making these decisions on their own. And they start getting a little bit more of this self-empowerment where they're choosing, even the 7-year-old, the 5-year-old, the 9-year-old are starting to do a lot of the things on their own without being asked, which is really neat. It's been a really cool experiment to see.
Interesting. I have a slightly different twist on it, although I don't really sort of like define right or wrong in parenting. There is such a complex endeavor, many, many ways to do it. But all discipline is an educational process. All influence is an educational process. The child has the right to know what is mean to be good. What does that mean? What does it mean to do bad? What are the desired behaviors? What are the undesired behaviors? So don't throw your toys. That's just a command that is more controlling. But, choices and consequences is the key, because the educational process here is empowering our children to make right choices. That is a 15 to 20 year endeavor that starts at the age of around 1.5 or 2 and goes right through to teenage years. And what we are slowly doing is educating them to make proper choices. For example, instead of just don't throw your toys, tell them what the choice and consequence is. If you throw your toys, you might hit your baby sister, and we don't want that, and I'll have to put the toys away. If you play with your toys on the ground, nobody will get hurt. You can keep playing. Now, it is your choice. It's always their choice. And what they actually begin to know, that a wrong choice has consequences that are not very desirable. Their life shrinks a bit. Good choices are more desirable. That life is rewarded a little bit. And slowly but surely, they gravitate toward good choices. But I think they have to know what these terms mean and what we expect. Undesired behavior in some detail and desired behavior.
It seems like, I think all of us parents can attest to this, it seems like the path that you're helping us on is the longer, more tedious, more challenging approach, as opposed to telling them what to do. It's a little bit more of the shortcut, easy solution.
Not a quick fix.
Not a quick fix. But it does also seem like, at least it resonates with me, and I'm sure it resonates with a lot of the parents listening, that by helping them through this, it helps start to figure out their problem-solving gene or bug in them, right? It's like that you're growing that muscle.
That's a perfect analogy. It's just like you go to the gym and you work out, you do it day after day after day, and you grow your muscles. It's not a quick fix. You can't do it in one workout. It's the same with our children. We are strengthening a muscle of choice, knowing the difference between what's acceptable and non-acceptable, the difference between being a good student in class, being a good student in church or synagogue, and so obeying the law and so on. And so it's all teaching
Choice.
them life skill, and it's all about choices, but they are empowered to make these choices. So again, going back to control, what control does is it takes their ability to choose away. So it actually weakens that muscle if you never use that muscle. So it's like, do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that. And it's based on fear. That's the other thing. And the question we've asked before is, do we want fear in the nature and fabric of our relationship with our sons and daughters? Control tends to be fear-based. Now, hey, I told you once, you know what happens if I tell you again? Discipline and choices and consequences is an educational process about you flexing the muscle of good choices.
It also seems, as I talked about earlier, about this being a little bit more of the longer, more detailed process, which I've noticed too. And so it's like when you come home and you want to work through this with these challenges with your kids, you're waking up in the morning, you're trying to get them in the school bus, you're trying to get them to bed. It's to not demand or tell them what to do. As you said, it's longer. So I think what also is important for us parents to remind ourselves on is taking care of our own needs and making sure that we are ready for this process, stress, sleep, good food and all that. This is going to be a long process and it takes a lot of energy.
Yeah. First thing in the morning, it's a little tougher. When you get home from work, you've had a stressful day. People have been giving you a hard time. It's definitely a little tougher. I think the long view is we want to have the best, see the best for our children, and have the best relationships. The underlying foundation of all this is relationship. For any of this to work, we've got to have a loving, close relationship. And we talk in other podcasts about that, but reading to them, hugging them, complimenting them. And, some people think that snapping your fingers and shouting out a command generates respect. Well, if I was standing over you now, Corey Perlman, and I just pointed my finger and I said, you will respect me, and I never want to hear that out of you again, you may be afraid, you maybe obey that, or you may rebel against it.
Still just made me scared just by hearing that.
But it doesn't engender respect.
Right.
Respect is when you get eyeball to eyeball, same level as that 5-year-old, and you say, look, it hurts my feelings when you say that. Don't say that to me. Don't say that to your sister. You don't want us to say that to you. So, you appeal to them and you make, it's all a teaching process.
This also resonates with me in terms of, when we talk about in the Nurturing Fathers program, when I talk to the men, there's a common theme that comes along, which is proactive versus reactive. And I feel like the control aspect is very reactive. You're snapping your fingers, like you said, you're doing, whereas giving them the opportunity to choose and them to take control, make the right decision is proactive parenting. And you got to take the time for yourself and be prepared to do that. But the outcomes are so much better when you see the children figured out on their own.
And most parents come into the world knowing parenting from their own parents, for better or worse. So this is not laid out, and this gives you proactive options. Once you understand the process we're talking about and the long-term goal of empowering our children to do right, it makes sense, and we are more able to access that. So we're less reactive. I'm never at my strength as a parent when I'm in a reactive mode.
Right.
It's always better when I'm.
We tend to regret when we are reactive parenting versus proactive parenting. I can say that through personal experience.
Yeah, I wish I didn't do that. I wish I didn't say that.
It's emotional.
And if I say I wish I didn't say it, here's another sort of fathering issue. I have said to my both sons when they were young, hey, Corey, I'm sorry I said that. I should not have said that in that way. Let me put this a different way. The father's ability to be a little bit humble and a little bit real and say, I'm sorry, means a tremendous amount to their children, because you're role modeling that nobody is perfect. And we do apologize for our mistakes. So once again, the teaching is powerful. We as men sometimes don't like to sort of get off that little pedestal but I'll tell you, I've seen it be very, very effective.
Yeah, I think that, as I know with our kids, 9 and 6, giving them the opportunity to have control over any parts of their life that we can give them control over definitely not only provides the freedom for both sides, actually. It provides the freedom for them to be able to earn our praise and appreciation for getting the stuff done, but it takes a lot of the stress off of us if we can get it there. And again, this is not something that happens overnight. Any situation where you're feeling right now that you're controlling the situation and you want to give more control to your kids, it's going to take some time and it's going to take some training.
Absolutely.
Right? But the rewards afterwards, and this is another thing just to remember, everybody, that when you go through this process of giving control to your kids and giving them the opportunity to make the right decisions. Remember to praise them. They will do more of what we pay attention to. So if we give them as much excitement and energy towards what they're doing right as we do anger and energy towards what they do wrong, we will hopefully see more of those desired behaviors.
Well said. I absolutely agree with that. So here's what the big picture looks like. It is a dance between limited activity and responsibility, with teaching responsibility, with choosing to do responsible things and behave well. So if a 2 or 3-year-old, they come into the world wild. They don't have any self-control. They don't have any restraints. They have none of that. So they live in a relatively small circle. We got to keep their eye on them. We got to watch what they do. But as they learn a little bit more responsibility, by 5, their circle expands. By 8, it expands more. But they expands as they show us that they can be responsible. When they act irresponsibly, make the wrong choices, that circle shrinks.
Right.
By the time your child is 16, it's a pretty damn big circle. They're out in the world doing their own stuff. But still, they get into a little car, fender bender, boom, that world shrinks. They come home with a D instead of a B, that circle shrinks. But the circle grows because as they come into the adult world, we want them to be fully responsible adults.
And it seems like, later on in life, I don't have teenagers yet, but to have them working on this decision-making muscle early on, because like you said, they're going to be out of your hands a lot more when they're teenagers than when they're younger, and you want them to be making the right decisions, and making decisions with positive consequences along with them.
Let me say one more thing here that came to mind, because this issue leads us to so many different places. As role models, and men especially, our daughters and sons look up to us and they see what an adult man is supposed to be like. And a lot of stuff is transferred and learned by that. So we are constantly role modeling and teaching. That is one of our greatest influences. Be who you want them to be. Act as you want them to act. If kindness is one of your values, be kind. If treating women with respect is one of your values, treat your wife with respect. Show them how we do that, because that is probably the greatest influencer and the greatest teacher. They will imitate who we are and what we do more than lecturing and what we say.
So the fact that I pound my fist and scream at the TV during sports games is why Milo does that as well.
It's so cute the way the little boys will absolutely mimic their dads. They look like little mini dads.
Yes.
So let me just put one more area with this too. How do we teach influences? Look at the different important parts of your life: church or synagogue, school, whatever that might be, birthdays, Christmas celebrations, holidays, family vacations. Use those opportunities to do it in a way that teach the values that you want your children to learn. Make birthdays a certain celebration with what? The values of love, the values of generosity, the values of appreciating, receiving gifts, having friends around. Use your holidays in a way that exemplify the values that you want your children to learn. They're wonderful opportunities for teaching, not necessarily lecturing, just by doing it in a way that shows and promotes the values that are important to you. Children absorb that and will also learn from it.
So as we wrap up here, just a couple of outcomes and actions for our listeners, and we can maybe ping pong here for a second if you've got any, but where are some opportunities where you can offer control back over to your kids? Where is something right now? Where's a situation or a routine or something where you are controlling the situation and you can loosen the rope, so to speak, a little bit and give them the opportunity to make the right or sometimes the wrong decisions and, be able to handle that situation without you telling them what to do? Can you switch control from you to them in certain situations?
Yeah. Anytime you have the opportunity to say to the child, well, you do it. You show me that you can do it, whether they're 3 or whether they're 23. But that you can do it. Literally gives them the power, and they love it. And you can always correct or suggest something else. It's always a learning process, learning, teaching.
And then choices.
Choices and consequences. If you do this, this will happen. If you do this, this will happen. If you do the right thing, expect this. And if you blow it, which kids will, expect this. But it's still your choice.
If we give ourselves the opportunity, so we're aware of when we're demanding or telling them what to do and stopping ourselves and saying, wait, let me think through for a second. What are the choices that they can have here, and let them choose the right path?
That strengthens that muscle of choice, and that is one great gift to have our kids go out into the world. Yeah. Certainly we want functioning young adults who can make the right choices.
Amen.
Instead of control, self-control. What the end product will be of this process is the child learns self-control, which means we as the dad sometimes have to exercise self-control, not to do the quickest thing that, as Corey said, we wish we hadn't done. But what we're doing is we're ceding control ultimately over to these children, young adults, so that they can live fulfilling lives and make good choices for themselves.
I like that. So by giving up or offering over control to our kids, we're helping them create self-control.
Absolutely.
For the children.
Absolutely.
That's powerful. Did you steal that from somebody, or is that?
Everything. I steal everything.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, that was a fun one. I appreciate it, Dad. It was really good, wise wisdom, my friends. So thank you so much. If you're enjoying this, we would love to hear from you. Comment, rating, a social media post, take a picture of the episode that you're listening to and share it to social. We'd certainly appreciate that. Check us out at facebook.com/nurturingfathers. And you can always send my dad a little line of thanks over email at nurturingfathers@gmail.com. And we will see you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Nurturing Fathers podcast. Have questions or comments? Join the conversation at facebook.com/nurturingfathers or email us at nurturingfathers@gmail.com.